Oh, hey, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Rebel News Roundup. It's a show we host on Monday or on Friday. And there's my friend David Menzies. I am so glad to see you because I'm ill prepared for the show. And I was like, oh no, there's no David. Nobody told me that. So David, please take it away.
Absolutely. Well, folks, welcome to the Rebel News live stream on this, a Friday, September 27th, 2024. I'm David Menzies, and my co-host will let me tell you a bit about my co-host. Do you know, folks, today is National Crush a Can Day, and my co-host and I want to thank the Canadian Soft Drink Association for switching from steel to aluminum cans, because you know what? Now everybody is a tough guy. She is the she-devil with a sword. She is the Khaleesi of Northern Alberta. She is Sheila Gunn Reid. Sheila, have you crushed a can today yet?
You know, I didn't realize that was the day today. Otherwise, you would have seen me crushing one like Stone Cold Steve Austin when you cut back to me. I didn't have the props ready. It's also... it's a really very busy day. It's Hug a Vegetarian Day. They could use a hug. They're probably cold. It's National AJ Day, Chocolate Milk Day. This Hallmark garbage. Anyway, we've got a lot to talk about, and I want to keep us on track today, which is attempting to do I cannot go late today because I have to get out of my office and get on the road, because tonight in Calgary, the big boss, Ezra Levant, is accepting the George Jonas Freedom Award given to him by the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms for his work in the advancement of freedom of the press, freedom of religion, freedom to protest, freedom of assembly. High time that man was honored for his work. And I say that as not just his employee, but also a fan right from the get-go. Sometimes it feels strange to be working for Ezra, having followed his work for so long before I ever worked for him. So that's what we're doing tonight, and it's going to be great to see him honored. So
can't think of a better recipient. And for all you folks out there going, oh yeah, easy for you to say, you're his employee. True, but if I wasn't, I would still say it. Ezra is a tireless freedom fighter. He has been for decades, going back to Sun News, going back to when he was the publisher of the Western Standard. For example, only publisher in Canada that I know that had the gonads to publish those Danish Mohammed cartoons. And it's about time Ezra Levant received this recognition. So way to go, boss.
Yeah, I mean, I think back to Fight the Fines. It was just something he said off the cuff in a staff meeting at some point before Christmas, because at that point they were banning Christmas and assembly and stuff. And he says, you know what we're going to do? We're going to take 1,000 of these. If people get tickets for gathering, we're going to take 1,000. And then he gave an email, and then we went on Christmas break. And then I realized that I was on the other end of that email. so you know, it's fun to sort of work for someone who has these big ideas and then just doesn't even really care about them. It's not that he doesn't care about the mechanics of them, but he sort of knows that he has surrounded himself with people who will sort of figure out the details as long as he's the ideas guy. And, like it's just wild to think, you know what? They're going to ticket people for Christmas and we are going to help 1,000 of those people. And not only did we do it, we helped way more than 1,000 people, and it spun off into something wonderful after that. So, I mean, it's just, he's a bit of a visionary. I said I would keep this tight, so I'm going to be quiet and quit angling for a raise, tell everybody what we're doing here, and then get into how people can get involved.
And before you
Sorry, go
do,
ahead.
Sheila, correct me if I'm wrong, but Ezra discovered you in social media and then reached out with a job offer, kind of in stark comparison to my role. Think of me in the role of Johnny LaRue and Ezra in the role of Guy Caballero, and me going to Ezra after the demise of Sun News going, oh, please, Mr. Caballero, give me a job. I have car payments. I have a mortgage.
Yeah.
So, but in both occasions, it worked out well for us, didn't it?
Do you know what? It worked out well for Ezra too, okay? Anyways, let's get into what we're doing today. So this is the Rebel News, as I tried to say by myself off the beginning of the show before David showed up in his spot looking as dapper as ever. This is the Rebel Roundup. It's a twice weekly show. We talk about the news of the day on Monday and on Friday. And what's great about the show is, as I'm sure you can tell, it's quite unscripted. And we give you the opportunity to get involved in the show but also support the work that we do here at Rebel News. So if you are watching us on YouTube, thanks for sticking it out there. They don't want you there though. And they have purposefully censored and demonetized us here at Rebel News because, well, we had a little bit too much truthiness. So if you want to support a platform that doesn't really care about your politics, they believe in being the marketplace of ideas, head on over to Rumble, because on Rumble, again, you won't face that same censorship, but you will be able to support Rebel News because you can't do that on YouTube. So if you leave us something called a Rumble rant, that's their paid chat. If it's over the $5 US cutoff, I'm hereby obligating myself to read it on air. But don't let that be the bar for entry. Leave us a chat that's lower than that if you don't want it to be read on air. But we frequently read the chats that fall under that $5 US cutoff. So, and sometimes we even read the free chats. If you guys are funny, you're insightful, someone will send them to me and I'll read them on air. So that's what we're doing. We've got a whole bunch of stuff to talk about. So David, I will let you pick the first thing.
You know what? I love this story about Pierre Poilievre and CTV because CTV issued the apology. Now they found 2 poor sacrificial lambs to fire. And
have they been though? Have they? We'll get into the crux of that. But this story is like getting into a hot bath on a cold day. I just love it. But I'll let you key it up. I don't think they've been fired, or that's not confirmed. Anyway.
I didn't think about that, Sheila. I have a couple of contacts at Bell Media. I'll do some off the record phone calling and find out who these people are and if indeed they've been fired. I would, if I had to bet, I would say yeah, because this has really tarnished the brand reputation of CTV and its parent company, Bell Media. And Sheila, what is so odious about this? If the viewers don't know what this is about, they selectively edited the footage. So it made out that Pierre Poilievre wasn't calling a non-confidence vote over the carbon tax, but over the dental care program. Now, I've been in this game for a few decades. I know how these sausages are made, these video reports. And Sheila, yeah, mistakes are made in the editing room, especially if you're rushing to deadline. But usually the mistake is leaving something out, leaving a piece of tangible information out of the report. That was not the case here. They went into the report, inserted something, and made it the total opposite of what Pierre Poilievre was saying. It is absolutely despicable in terms of journalism ethics. This is about the worst you can do, the absolute worst. There should definitely be terminations over this. I hope you're wrong. I hope that's not BS. And if it is BS, then this scandal is going to be perpetrated. So I truly believe CTV found a couple of fall guys or fall gals and said, adios, thanks for your service. And Sheila, Pierre Poilievre has every right to be furious about this. And, I just, it was speculated that the Poilievre camp might indeed ban CTV News from press conferences. And
They said
that
they
the
weren't
other
going to speak
mainstream
to them.
media, Global and CBC, well, we stand in solidarity with CTV. We won't go. God, it's Christmas in September, right? Like, I guess we'll be going to every Pierre Poilievre press conference. Wow, how the tide has changed. But Sheila, that is why I am furious about this. This was not a mistake. It was a deliberate act of sabotage. People are saying, oh, we're worried about AI in terms of misinformation and disinformation. Forget about AI. Look at these AI. MSM sluggos falsifying the narrative.
Yeah, these are BS peddlers and smear merchants. It's all they are. We know they are. We just actually saw it happen in real time. They twist context all the time and they get away with it. And that's why they thought they could get away with this by going just one step further, right? Yep. They push the bar because they've gotten away with it for so long. And I love the mainstream media outrage because I saw like Susan Delacourt. If you don't know who she is, she's a fossil of the mainstream media. She was saying, this, how dare Poilievre do these attacks on CTV? This is an attack on the media, don't you know? And it's like, sorry, grandma media, where were you when the Trudeau government doesn't allow us into press conferences, not because we twist their words, but because we show their words in full. We get kept out of press conferences because we tell the truth as opposed to lie and twist on behalf of Justin Trudeau. But when we don't get any media outrage when they do that to us, when we get frog marched out of events, arrested in the street for trying to report, in your case, roughed up. But, what we saw from Poilievre is something that we haven't saw from the other vegetable lasagna types who have led the party in the last, 5 years. Andrew Scheer, whom I like better as an MP than I ever did as a leader. I like him again. Erin O'Toole.
Who?
Just exactly. Exactly. He's butter and noodles, that guy. Unsalted butter with noodles. Those guys never stood up to the media. In fact, they kissed the media's butt, feeding the crocodile to make sure it ate you last. But at the end, the crocodile always gets hungry. Poilievre did something different. He said, we're not talking to any of these guys. We're not talking to even their lobbyists. They can go to hell sideways, basically. And you know what happened? 24 hours, CTV cracks. Yep. CTV cracks. And they admit they've done something wrong after first saying, oh, it was a big accident. I'm like, no, there's no possible way that was an accident. You twisted it to add context that didn't exist. This is what the statement from CTV National News says. And pay attention to what is said and what doesn't get said here.
Okay.
CTV National News today issued the following statement regarding a report on its September 22nd, 2024 broadcast. A report on Sunday's CTV National News broadcast did not meet our expected and required high editorial standards. Sure. We sincerely and unreservedly apologize for the manner this report went to air and the false impression it created. As is standard practice, we conducted an investigation to determine whether a breach of our editorial policies and practices had occurred in this case. I should tell you the sheer volume of eyeballs that look at our work before we go to the door, and we don't have the big bailout budgets that these people have.
Yep.
The investigation found that 2 members, so this was, as they say, a conspiracy, of the CTV News team are responsible for altering a video clip, manipulating it for a particular story. Their actions violate our editorial standards and are unacceptable. Here's where we get some clarity, but also more fogginess. Those individuals are no longer members of the CTV News team. Okay, but they're probably not fired. They've just been shuffled out of the news department.
Oh, so in other words, they're at another Bell Media property, like a radio station, for example.
Yeah, they could be at a radio station. They could work in production somewhere else. Our duty.
We have to
Let's
follow
just
this
finish
up.
it. They
Great.
say they have a duty to provide accurate, fair, and balanced coverage on issues that matter to Canadians, and to do so fully independently. Sure. Anyways, now you know. Now they're caught doing this, something they probably do every single day, and they never told us these guys were terminated. They didn't say terminated.
You know what, Sheila? Please give yourself a Barry Horowitz pat on the back, because I missed that. That's a great catch by you. I interpret that as they're gone, but now as you made the case, they've been perhaps shuffled into another cog of the Bell Media machine, which is disgraceful. We have to follow that up, by the way. Secondly, I just want to say this about Susan Delacourt of the Toronto Star, who, along with Andrew Coyne of the Globe and Mail, if that was a horse race, this is a photo finish in terms of who is the most boring journalist in Canada. They're dreadful, both of them. But I want to say
look boring.
this.
Like they're not even interesting to look at. You look at them on TV. Like I saw a screenshot of the CBC, I think it's CBC's At Issue panel. And there was just a bunch of surly, boring people all wearing differing shades of brown and gray, just saying the same thing, agreeing with each other about being boring.
Oh, holy Chantal Hebert. But anyway, the thing is, Sheila, did Susan Delacourt think this out? Let's give CTV the benefit of the doubt. Let's say their apology is sincere. Let's say the two conspirators behind this are fired. Well, Susan, what are you going to bat for? You're going to bat for CTV screwing up, having a deliberate, vengeful attack on Pierre Poilievre, which CTV itself says did not meet their standards. We are sorry about this. What is she thinking, Sheila? Has she lost what's left of her remaining marbles?
No, you know what it is? It's because she's a print journalist and she's made a career of taking a snippet of a sentence out of context and spinning it into a news article. This time it happened in video. She doesn't think anything wrong happened here because this is something she herself has done for years and years. If you look at my X account, it has been my job over the last 2 ungodly weeks to cover the Foreign Interference Commission. And what I do is I frequently clip the video of the full examination of these witnesses by a certain lawyer. Sometimes it's 6 minutes, 5 minutes, 3 minutes, whatever. I clip it in full. Or I do it with committee. And the reason I do that is, here's Dane Lloyd. I'll see 6 minutes and 31 seconds. I clip it in full so that you can see the full context of the exchange. Because I think the full context is always better. I don't shorten things up to manipulate it for a clever soundbite. I want people to see the full story. The mainstream media has never done that. And they're finally being held to account for it. And they don't know what to do with themselves. They're so offended that someone would question their thin journalistic ethics.
And you know, good for you for doing that, Sheila. I hope I have my figures right, but I remember reading something about the average length of a soundbite during a U.S. federal election. So in 1968, I believe the average length of a soundbite was 1 minute and 10 seconds. By the 1990s, it was down to 8 seconds. So that's why you had candidates like, Bush at the time coming up with basically slogans: read my lips, no new taxes, right? You're in under the 8 seconds. But, I think it's folly. And I think this is why you're doing a good service. You can't summarize national policies, things of profound importance, in 8 seconds or less. It just can't be done. And I know everybody has time constraints. I get it. But when it comes to important matters like the ones you're following in Ottawa, Sheila, it's incumbent upon us, I think, to give the true, unvarnished story as opposed to some sexy soundbite clip.
I completely agree. Speaking of sexy soundbite clip, hot vomit in the back of my throat.
Oh,
but
no.
here's
Why are you looking at me?
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, who fancies himself to be the sexiest man in every room that he stands in, with a straight face, praising press freedom, as we are currently suing him in court, and takes a shot at Poilievre for attacking CTV after the outlet deceptively edited the Conservative leader's statements, and CTV has just admitted wrongdoing. But it's okay because you have Justin Trudeau going to bat for you being a liar. Why even admit that your staff lied if you've got the most powerful man in the country saying it's fine? And to question media liars is an attack on press freedom, while we sue him to get access to press conferences, leaders, debates, for fair tax treatment for our subscribers, thanks to the QCJO. Anyway, look at this absolute idiot with no self-awareness whatsoever.
We know that democratic values and principles are under attack around the world from authoritarians, from far right-wing populists, from a whole bunch of people who don't particularly want to see strong and thriving free democracies. Part of the targets of attacks on democracies is on a free, independent media, is on the work that professional journalists do to hold governments and people in power to account and inform Canadians and inform citizens about what's going on in their democracies. I, as you well know, have often disagreed with some of the conclusions that media has been opining on from time to time, but in the conveying of facts, in the challenging people in positions of authority or who seek positions of authority, it's absolutely essential that we always defend the freedom of and independence of the media. And politicians who deliberately undermine the legitimacy and the hard work by professional journalists are not standing up for democracy, are certainly not standing up for freedom.
I agree with him. I agree with him.
But Sheila, you're right. The lack of self-awareness
is wild, right?
I mean, what suddenly blackface is going to bat for journalism. What happened back in January when his henchwoman, Fraulein Freeland, had me set up and arrested for trying to scrum her? I mean, that's incredible, but I don't want to make this about me. Let's go back. It's the same thing as Susan Delacourt of the Toronto Star going to bat for CTV. With the Prime Minister going to bat for CTV, he's saying the same thing she is. I am supporting a fraudulent news report in which the news media outlet itself has apologized and reportedly fired the two people responsible for that misinformation. This is unbelievable. I mean, Sheila, I know this is really bad live stream material, but I'm almost lost for words.
That's okay, because we have to do an ad break right away. But but I will say that I believe in every single word Justin Trudeau said, as long as he's saying it about himself, because he definitely isn't. That's not how Pierre Poilievre treats independent media. Justin Trudeau actually said the word "an independent," like independent journalists. He used the word independent. I believe what he said about independent journalists when I say it. I don't believe it when he says it. Yeah. But who is he talking about? CTV? They're not independent journalists. You cannot be an independent journalist when you are dependent on the media or on the government for the survival of your outlet. That's completely the opposite. If you are taking money from the government, you are not independent. That's
Sheila,
it.
You are so right. And let me just say this. back in the early 80s, when I went to Ryerson for journalism, back when it was called Ryerson, before the guy was falsely condemned as a white supremacist. But anyways, if my old journalism teachers were alive and well, and by the way, most of them were left of center easily, I can tell you they would be horrified by the idea of any entity funding the mainstream media. It'd be like, Sheila, it'd be like me going to, Maple Leaf Meat Packers, and it's in the midst of an E. coli outbreak. And the owner of Maple Leaf, or the CEO, comes and says, hey, Dave, do you and the missus want a nice vacation to Hawaii? Here's a blank check, fill it out. How would that not make me compromised? How could I possibly cover the meat plant in an objective way when there is a sugar daddy at the meat plant? It is exactly the same thing when mainstream media outlets are receiving payola from the federal government. You're telling me they're not pulling their punches? You're telling me they're not being...
We just saw it.
Yeah,
we just saw it.
Exactly. You're compromised.
Not only are they not pulling their punches, they're going one step further and punching at the other guy.
Yep.
Anyway, we have an ad break we have to get to. And then, Olivia, I put it in the chat there, but if you wouldn't mind, just for funsies, because I was like, call the burn unit and admit Stephen Guilbeault to it. Because of what happened to him at committee on the Jasper fires. But I know we have an ad break, and I know this one is near and dear to me and David because we both love our dogs. Mine is currently under my desk chewing on something kind of gross. I don't know if the audio is picking it up. I don't know what it is, but it is moist and it's on my foot. So it's from Positive. If you have a dog, and I do, and David does, we've all been there. Our pup goes from full of energy to sick and miserable in an instant and at the worst of times. Then we're calling vets in the middle of the night or on the weekends, trying to find a clinic that will take care of us and our dog. It's a terrible way to manage your dog's health, not to manage your stress levels and your monthly budget. That's why people are getting the Pet Emergency Kit by Positive. It contains critical medications and supplies that can not only keep you out of the veterinary office, but may even save your dog's life. Their kit contains critical medications like activated charcoal, styptic powder, and more. It might save your dog's life. Head on over to positive.com and use the code STUDIO to get 15% off your Pet Emergency Kit. That's Positive, and it's PAWSITIVE.com. All right. Do we have a Rebel News ad break too to hit right now?
I believe a Rumble ad read.
Yeah, let's do one.
Hello everyone! Hello all Rebel fans! Rebel News Live is back and will be soon happening in Calgary. Are you coming? Because I'm going to be there and I would love to see all of you and meet new faces. This year, we are heading to Calgary on October 5th for a fun full day of interesting conversations and of course, great food too. It's my favorite event of the year and I know you won't want to miss it. You will be able to meet and hear from your favorite Rebel journalists and many special guests. And today, we have the honor to feature Alberta Premier Danielle Smith. You can get your ticket and see all the details at rebelnewslive.com. So, see you in Calgary. Love you all.
Here is my kind of passport, folks. Look at this beauty. Introducing a new special edition Freedom Passport. What if the greatest teacher of all time framed his message as a constitution for a kingdom of love, faith, and freedom? Inspired by Jesus' teachings in the Sermon on the Mount, this special edition Freedom Passport captures the foundational truths of love and freedom for all. It's a powerful reminder of Jesus' call to love one another that you can carry with you every day. Join the movement, share the truth, and spread the love with your family and friends. Get your Freedom Passport today at freedompassport.ca. That's freedompassport.ca. bathtub.ca. All orders in North America come with free shipping and a complimentary song with each purchase.
Okay, great. Go ahead, David.
Oh, yes, Sheila, so much to get to. Why don't we jump on down to the what's being slugged here for me, the Trudeau bathtub drama.
Again, I love this story because I've been subjected to, I subjected myself to the hearings on said bathtub. It's Tom Clark, his bathtub. Tom Clark, also a legacy fossil of the mainstream media, who knew what his job was, and that was to ask lightweight questions of Prime Minister Justin Trudeau until such time as he would get his just rewards for it. So Tom Clark retired from the mainstream media, and then he was appointed to the board that selects the board for the CTV or CBC. He's the guy who selected Catherine Tate, our current head of the CBC. He did that to us. And then after that, he became the consul general in New York, Canada's envoy in New York. Wow. And he got there and he was appointed, and then he was there. His first real visit from Prime Minister Justin Trudeau in April, right after they're shopping for a new condo. Nothing wrong with the old condo. In fact, the old condo has more general meeting space. This one has more living space. Oh. $9 million condo they bought for him, overlooks Central Park. And they didn't even bother to list the new condo until the news broke that there was two condos, and we bought Tom Clark a new condo. And the mortgage payments, I think, are about $40,000 a month, 40-something thousand a month on this thing.
That sounds low, Sheila. For
taxpayers are carrying both.
You sure it's not higher than that? A New York condo overlooking Central Park? I'm surprised it's that cheap, actually.
No, and then there's like tens of thousands of dollars in condo fees.
Ah, thank you.
Like tens of thousands of dollars for the coffee machine. I think the oven is $18,000. I heard many, many times about this clawfoot bathtub. In fact, Larry Brock, who, if he is not this country's next AG, what are we even doing around here? Yeah. He listed one time at committee like the costs of everything and the like marble and like everything with the dollar amount. And it's like, I'm having a tough, $42,000 a month. And I'm like, the cost of groceries has doubled for the average Canadian. We're like, most Canadians are like 1 month away from the poorhouse. And I heard multiple times about Tom Clark's friggin' clawfoot bathtub, which is like a designer bathtub. Like it's like if a designer, like like Van Gogh made a bathtub, that's the one that he has, right? And so anyways, in the House of Commons, my MP, Garnet Janice, full disclosure, he's my MP. Before I worked for Rebel, I drove a truck in a parade with his stuff on the side. Just in case that picture's out there, I'm just disclosing my previous relationship with the MP. I think it was Garnet, obviously, who heckled and said something about, did you get in the bathtub with Tom Clark when you visited him? And I think it's a reasonable question because I want to know how big this stupid multi-tens of thousands of dollars bathtub is. I'm curious. Could we get a Trudeau, a Tom Clark, and maybe a Rosie Barton in there? Could we? I want to know. It's a reasonable question. I've heard so much about it.
Please, I scare easy, Sheila. And why don't we
I have a callus to this story, so I don't.
And why don't we throw to Trudeau commenting about this and making what I deem to be an absolutely outrageous leap to to condemn this. Just check it out, folks.
Yeah.
I'm always going to stand up to bullies. When anyone makes a homophobic comment, I will respond, and that's something I need to do.
Why did it take you 2 tries to withdraw?
Okay.
Thanks.
two things: bullies and homophobia. Ezra is spearheading the report of what's happening to so many Amish families in Ontario, being saddled with hundreds of thousands of dollars of ArriveCan app fines. You see, you can't download an app to a cell phone when the person doesn't have a cell phone, don't even own a landline. And the federal government, folks, has put a lien on their properties. They have economically penalized these people who don't look for any trouble whatsoever. It's despicable. The mainstream media thinks this is a nothing burger. We're fighting them. This is being a bully on steroids, Sheila, what's happening to the Amish community. The second thing is homophobia. Well, you know what? I think the Prime Minister is guilty of sexism because he is automatically concluding that the person, the head of state or the ambassador or the diplomat or what have you, meeting in Tom Clark's bathtub is a man. It could be a woman, right? So there is no homophobia. That's what I would say if I was your MP, Sheila.
No, I think the insinuation is, did Justin Trudeau get in the bathtub? I also want to know if Justin Trudeau, when he was visiting Tom Clark back in April, if they swam in the Olympic-style swimming pool. Did they use the pickleball court? You know what? Honestly, I hope to God somebody uses that damn pickleball court because we're paying for it. I hope Tom Clark plays pickleball 3 friggin' times a day because I want Canadian taxpayers to get their money's worth. So yes, I want to know if Justin Trudeau is in the bathtub. I want to know if he looked at the bathtub. Tom Clark, by the way, if you go back and watch that committee hearing where Tom Clark had to testify, he did this thing that liars often do when you ask them a question, and that is stop to repeat the question back. Did you, when there's like Larry Brock, who is so good, asks, did you take Justin Trudeau on a tour of the condo when he came to visit you? Did I take Justin Trudeau on a tour of the condo when he came to visit me? No, I don't believe I ever did. And I'm like, oh, that's what liars do. That's a common thing that liars do. But the real funny clip that we have is, where is it here? It's when the exchange happens. And Greg Fergus, who's the Speaker of the House, absolutely loses control of the House of Commons, as he tends to do on like a thrice daily basis. I don't know. I'm not sure what he does around there. Everybody's fighting. There's a clip from last week where Larry Brock is like calling Justin Trudeau an a-hole and telling him to come down or not Justin Trudeau, sorry, Jagmeet Singh an a-hole. And then after Jagmeet Singh said like, let's fight, and Larry Brock's like, come on, a-hole, like, let's go, let's rumble. And like the Conservative benches are all making fun of Jagmeet Singh. Like, it's mayhem in the House of Commons right now. Nobody has any respect for anybody. I can't blame them for that. But let's show the aftermath of the like, hey, did you get in the bathtub with Tom Clark? Because Trudeau stands up, emotes, does his drama teacher thing, accuses everybody of homophobia, uses unparliamentary language as he tends to do, and then Fergus tries to get him to apologize, and it's just comical nonsense. Like, the economy's melting down, and this is what our politicians are tasked with every day.
And thank you.
Mr. Speaker, I will happily withdraw my comment if the member who suggested that I was sharing a bathtub with Tom Clark stands up, takes responsibility for his...
Sheila, the only thing that
if
would
he
make...
would withdraw his remark that I was sharing a bathtub with Tom Clark. Can you believe that is said in the House of Commons? This, again, the economy is melting down. We're a launch pad for terrorism, apparently. People are coming into the country on temporary visitors visas without security checks and then claiming asylum and launching terror attacks into the United States. And Justin Trudeau is most outraged that somebody said, did you share a bathtub with Tom Clark? My goodness.
Sheila, how cool would it be if that 1970s hit from Carl Douglas, everyone was kung fu fighting, was piped through the speaker system of the House of Commons during that, especially with Pierre Poilievre and Jugmeat doing the whole mano a mano thing. But you're right, in the big picture, so many important issues, and we're talking about bathtubs and whatnot. And by the way, Sheila, maybe this is a bit of a stretch on my behalf, but you condemned Tom Clark for asking lightweight questions. Well, I'm going to counter that. I clearly remember him. I think he was in a helicopter with the Prime Minister, and the question he asked is what's on all Canadians' minds. What brand of shampoo?
Right.
So I guess here's where I'm connecting the dots. He brought up the shampoo thing. Shampoo is something you would connect with a bathtub, right? So, maybe there's something there. By the way, if you don't believe me, folks, I think our super producer, Olivia, has got the clip. Let's watch some real, hard-hitting journalism on behalf of Mr. Clark.
So I guess the first thing I should ask you is, are you feeling lucky? I mean, the entire country wants to know. What shampoo do you use?
What a disappointing answer this is going to be. Whatever happens to be hanging around at the time.
It's kind of funny, Sheila, because he is whatever is hanging around right now. Even Liberal MPs want him to stop hanging around. Boy, talk about buyer's remorse for that quote.
I want to know what kind of bubble bath Tom Clark uses in that enormous bathtub.
Well, Sheila, I would say Mr. Bubbles, but I'd be condemned as being a homophobe. Is there a Mrs. Bubbles? Do they make that?
You know what? Let's go to my MP, Garnet Jennis, walking on the sidewalk in beautiful downtown Sherwood Park, Alberta, explaining his take on what unfolded in the House of Commons.
Hi, everyone. Well, I know you all probably want to hear about what happened in Parliament this week. So here it is. Canadians have lost all confidence in this NDP Liberal government, and Conservatives have put forward multiple non-confidence motions in order to bring about a carbon tax election. On Tuesday, at the first opportunity, Conservative Leader Pierre Poilievre moved the first non-confidence motion. Now, after promising to tear up their agreement with the Liberals, the NDP taped things back together and voted for Justin Trudeau to stay in office. Conservatives stood alone in Parliament this week, but we stood on the side of Canadians who are the only party that is standing up to Justin Trudeau. We are the only party offering a real alternative. Of course, something else happened on Wednesday. The Prime Minister doubled down on his defense of the hated carbon tax and lashed out at all who disagreed. Now, on Thursday afternoon, after questions period, the Speaker ruled in favor of a Conservative question of privilege. The Liberal government breached the privileges of Parliament when they refused to hand over documents related to the Green Slush Fund scandal. Of course, Liberals would love to talk about anything but their scandals and their failed carbon tax, which is why they had such a rough week. But we're going to keep fighting for the people of Canada, the common people who care more about their paychecks and their safety than about the drama in Ottawa. We are fighting to restore the country we know and love. Your home, my home, our home. Let's bring it home.
Yeah,
what about the homophobia?
The whole point of it is nobody cares about Justin Trudeau's hurt feelings when people can't buy groceries, and these people don't get it. We don't care about Justin Trudeau's sad feelings because somebody made a joke about him having a bubble bath with Tom Clark. When you can't pay your bills, when you don't have a job, when you're worried about safety on the streets, like nobody cares. And I'm glad that Garnet put it back into context. Walking the streets of beautiful that was Sherwood Park, the other town in our community. I know that we have to touch on one thing because it's in the title of the YouTube video, and that is this apparent cover-up. And I wish that I could go back and get the clip, but CPAC has got a big glitch right in the middle of where this video clip is. But I've been watching the Foreign Interference Commission all week, and this is in the headline, so I'm going to talk about it. And I wrote it up yesterday after a very frustrating day of Twitter not allowing us to post videos, which was like a Twitter issue yesterday, or an X issue yesterday, not just an us thing. And then CPAC having a glitch right in the middle of this. But once that gets cleared up, I will go back and get it. So we were listening to the communications security establishment, 3 people from them yesterday. And Michael Chong's lawyer, Gib Van Aert, who broke my heart earlier this week because he was arguing on behalf of Amnesty International against Saskatchewan's Parents' Bill of Rights. But I guess it just means that he's a good lawyer if even the bad guys will hire him. But he's Michael Chong's lawyer. And as you know, Michael Chong has been the target of foreign interference. Now, the thing about Michael Chong is that he was targeted right out of the consulate the consulate in Toronto. The Liberal government, and we have the paper trail, informed of this all in 2021. And it all went all the way up to the ministers and the Privy Council and the Prime Minister's office. They all knew what was happening to Michael Chong. Guess how Michael Chong found out? In a Globe and Mail article. Nobody told him. He could have, and he's like, something terrible could have happened to me and my family. Yeah. And everybody knew, including the people I was campaigning against, but it was in their interest to keep their mouths shut. So,
unbelievable.
The security officials, the security communications officials, the people who sort of uncovered this, and then they give the information to the relevant agencies. They said, we did our job. Like it's not our job to go directly to Michael Chong. We give this information to the ministers and to CSIS, and they decide what needs to be done with it then. And nobody told Michael Chong. So in testimony yesterday, Gib Van Aert, breaking my heart, he produced a 2023 memo from Jody Thomas, so Trudeau's former national security advisor. He called the memo nonsense and a bureaucratic attempt to cover up the government's gross negligence. Basically, the memo is to the Prime Minister saying, there are failings of the security establishment to pass along this information to the MPs, but don't worry, we're fixing that. And what Gib Van Aert was saying is this was all coming out, and they produced this memo to the Prime Minister to lay a paper trail to cover up the fact that they knew and never told Michael Chong. So they have the documents from 2021. Then there's Jody Thomas is saying, well, no, look, the security officials failed. Well, the security officials said yesterday, look, we did our job. And what happened was after us, beyond our control. And this is a piece of paper to cover up and to pin the blame back on us retroactively. So that came out yesterday. So I don't know. CSIS is testifying today. I'll have news about that later. I'll go back and watch testimony afterwards. But as I said, I have to get on the road. But it's just so shameless. Nothing is going to change. And it probably won't change until somebody gets killed and poisoned by, China or Russia or whatever. Although Russia, as testimony has shown, doesn't actually care all that much about us. they don't care. But they're just going to hang on to this information, the Liberals, once they have it, because it benefits them.
And I go back to 2015, the election night promise of Justin Trudeau. This would be the most transparent government in the history of Canada. It's about as absolute transparent as black marble. This is an absolute scandal and a disgrace. And the fact that we don't know the names, Sheila, of these compromised people, that is egregious. There's no rational reason. This wouldn't happen in any other country, I would argue.
Right. This wouldn't happen in any other country. This is... we are going to go to the very next election with 11 parliamentarians for sure implicated in foreign interference. And this obviously benefits the Liberals. And you know how I know? Is because testimony came out that the Conservatives told on one of their own. So Victor O in the Senate, who I believe was taking sponsored travel by the PRC, the People's Republic of China. To his credit, Mr. Vegetable Lasagna himself, Aaron O'Toole, raised the issue with security officials and elections officials saying, we don't, and the thing is, Victor O, he's a senator. You can't unelect him. You can't say we're not signing off on his nomination next time around. He's a senator. He's there. They told on one of their own, saying we've got real concerns about Victor O and his pro-PRC positions. Nothing ever happened. So we know that Victor O is one of those 11. He's a conservative. We know because the Conservatives told on one of their own, because that's what people of morals do, and people who value the structural integrity of our electoral process do, which means the Liberals are hiding at least 10 of their own, quite likely. And sorry, I should tell people, if they want to send a message to the Liberals, go to exposethetraitors.com. That's our petition calling on the government who has this information. The Privy Council has this, the PMO has this, the Hogue Commission, the Foreign Interference Commission, the commissioner herself has this information. They're not going to name these people. The only way is to put pressure on that government to release the names, and then let these people defend themselves, because the integrity of our elections itself depends on it.
And, Sheila, I still, I asked the question, why wouldn't the Chinese government be in support of the Trudeau Liberals? Justin Trudeau, before he even became leader of the party, said back in 2013, that infamous quote, that he has, I'm paraphrasing now, but it was he had admiration for the basic dictatorship of China in terms of getting things done. What a horrific quote for any leader in the Western world to say, given what we knew about China then, and especially what we know about China now. So, I condemned the Prime Minister for a lack of transparency a few minutes ago. Well, now I'm applauding him, because he's not hiding it. He's down with communist China in terms of getting things done. And by the way, what is, in terms of getting things done, Sheila, like, I don't know, shutting down freedom of speech? Maybe that's one of the things. Unbelievable.
I know we have an ad break, and then I want to go to Stephen Guilbeault getting just torched at committee at the Environment Committee, and it happened at the hands of Blaine Calkins. And I'll explain to you. Well, I'll let Blaine Calkins, the Conservative MP, explain to you why it was important for him to be at the Environment Committee to hold Stephen Guilbeault to account, because he knows a little something about what went on and what has previously gone on in Jasper. So, well, yes. But anyways, we have a quick ad here. It's from our friends at 4 Patriots. Did you know it's National Preparedness Month? I must tell you, prepared all the time. The apocalypse waits for no one to get ready. So at 4 Patriots, we want to celebrate by bringing back this unbelievable buy one, get one deal on our solar generators. For a limited time, when you buy... Oh, okay, we're going to cut this one short. Let's go to Blaine Calkins, if we could. Olivia whispers in my ear, we're going to cut it short. So Blaine Calkins, if you wouldn't mind, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. Minister, you were asked earlier a very specific question by my colleague, Mr. Soroka, about when you were first briefed. When were you briefed about the gravity of the situation of the potential for a catastrophic fire in Jasper National Park, including the Jasper town site? When? I want a date, Minister. This is something that would stick in the memory of somebody if you were about to lose, a heritage site park. You would know when you had that conversation. When were you briefed?
En fait, j'ai commencé à recevoir.
I started receiving briefing notes. And again, as I noted, I spoke to the mayor of Jasper even before the situation deteriorated. I don't have the dates before me, but I can certainly provide them. I don't have my day planner with me, but I did have conversations with Parks Canada representatives even before people were evacuated, as I noted.
After you with the mayor and after you had those conversations, did you direct your staff at Parks Canada to accelerate their fire preparedness for Jasper? Yes or no?
Vous savez, je ne sais pas comment vous envisagez le travail de...
I don't know how you imagine a minister's job works.
Just
And I
wait.
don't know if you'll understand my answer, but it is not the minister's job to
Just wait.
micromanage 4,000 Parks Canada employees and tell them how to do their jobs. I'm not a forest fire expert.
It comes from the top,
Moi,
Minister. The
mon
tone comes
rôle,
from the
c'est de leur
top.
donner.
please.
The tone comes from the top, Minister. I know very well how it works, Minister, because while you were planning your next escapade to jump off of the CN Tower
Point
or
of
to
order, Mr.
trespass
Chair.
on the Premier's house, I
Point
was
of order,
actually at
Mr.
Park
Chair.
Park in Jasper National Park.
the time.
I was there on the ground.
Point of order, Mr. Chair.
I'm stopping the time. I mean, this is going south.
Point of order, Mr. Chair.
Yes,
But let's just cut it there,
Mr.
because then they go into the Vancouverton crying about the aggressive tone that Blaine Hawkins was using. But I don't know if you heard. I don't know if you heard that there. But he said, while you were planning your next escapade, like jumping off the CN Tower or trespassing at the Premier's house, I was a warden in Jasper National Park. And then he goes on to say, after Vancouverton cries about tone, he says, I was there when you, at Parks Canada, when they were reducing the cut roads so that they could access the forest if they were fires. I was there when those were being pulled out. And then he later on produces a document saying, from Parks staff saying, we're seeing some media reports about people opposing the grossness of controlled burns. And so we have to consider a different way to manage the forest. So they were not doing prescribed burns because they were worried about the political optics of prescribed burns, even though prescribed burns were the best way to weed out that pine beetle deadfall in the forest, because it became so dry that they were worried about removing it mechanically. They thought removing it mechanically, like cutting it down, would actually start a fire because it was so incendiary. So anyway, I was just like, call the burn unit.
And that abandoning, Sheila, of forest management practices, that was exactly what led to the California wildfires too, right?
Yes.
That somehow, in their view, burning down a tree, you're striking a slight against the environment, when it's the precise opposite. And tell me this, I don't get this business of the fellow with the gavel, I didn't get his name, doing the point of order, shutting down the question. This is not conjecture. This is a statement of fact about him scaling down the CN Tower illegally. Guilbeault is a convicted convict for that little stunt. Oh, what is this? Suddenly impolite queries are points of order and has to be shut down? Give me a break.
Yeah, it depends on who's in charge of the committee, whether you've got a Liberal in charge of the committee. The Conservatives are usually pretty like, look, you guys, we're here to ask questions. We have the witnesses here. It's sort of a privilege to have the witnesses come there for you to question them. And so they let the questions happen and they keep everything tight. The Liberals, when there's a Liberal chair of the committee, they love to just waste time on point of order. And then they're like, I don't like the tone. Well, that's not a legitimate point of order. Sorry. And then it's like, okay, well, now you've stopped the questioning. You've stopped it. And so we have to restart. And what they do it to stop the momentum of the questioning, because it was just really bad. It was just really, really bad for Guilbeault committee. Olivia tells me we have an ad that actually works. And then we should touch on immigration and then wrap up the show, because I have to turn this pumpkin into a chariot. And I have to go to Calgary to go to the Justice Center event, and that's 4 hours away for me. So we've got an ad from our friends at Rumble, and it's really important to support the platforms that support your right to speak your mind. Rumble is one of those, which is why we're so proud to stream there. This sponsorship is from Rumble, and it's one that's incredibly important to the survival of the company. When Rumble first started in 2013, they built the platform for the smaller creator. They didn't censor or have biases. They were fair and treated all creators equally. No one thought platforms would censor political conversation or censor opinions on COVID, but they did. Boy, did they ever. Facebook admitted they fell to pressure from the Biden and Harris administration in Canada. We saw Facebook doing the exact same thing. Health Canada would complain, they would take down your post. Just, you never knew what happened. Your post was gone. Rumble did not. They held the line. They attacked daily for giving us here at Rebel News a voice to talk to you. They're attacked in corporate media. They're attacked by governments like France. They're attacked from brand advertisers who refuse to work with them. Corporate America is fighting to remove free speech. Rumble is fighting to keep it. Rumble won't survive with brand advertisers. They don't get much of it. Watching our show on Rumble is the most they can ask from you. But if you really believe in this fight, and if you have the means, one of the major ways you can help Rumble survive is by joining Rumble Premium. Join the community that believes in the First Amendment and believes in our human right to free speech. I love how that is described. It's a human right. Rumble is offering $10 off with the promo code STUDIO when you purchase an annual subscription. Go to rumble.com/premium. Use the promo code STUDIO. Like I said, if you have the means and believe in the cause, now's the time to join Rumble Premium. If you don't have the means, we're just happy if you watch us on Rumble. Okay. All right. Let's hit this quick little immigration segment that we have here. And the reason I want to do it is because I don't like the emails when they're like, Sheila, it's in the YouTube title and you didn't talk about it. Why didn't you talk about it? And then I have to explain what it's like to work with David Menzies to a total stranger. What immigration is at committees, or was it? It was at committee all this week and last week, both at the immigration committee, but also at public safety, because not the out of control immigration is driving up the cost of housing, living, groceries, driving down our wages, and putting a strain on our social safety net. We all know that. It's the law of supply and demand. That's just how it is. More people, same resources, you're going to have longer waits. But also temporary foreign visitors coming to our country are getting here without security checks because they're just coming for a visit. You don't often need a security check for that. And then getting here and filing asylum. Well, now you're already here. Once you file asylum, we are not evicting you. You get to stay until you get your Immigration Review Board hearing, which can be up to 3-4 years down the road. Also, if you come here on a student permit, you get here, student permits from a lot of countries don't require a police background check. And once you get here, you can file asylum. So you have these fake diploma mills which allow you to get into the country, and then you get here and you claim asylum and no background check. You're just here now. You're a student and then you're a refugee. So Premier Doug Ford, a moment of conservatism, striking him. Let's watch this video.
Get up and contribute to society. We can't keep paying billions of dollars. And 25% on Ontario Works, and I feel sorry for these people, the asylum seekers and the refugees. The government of Canada has to give them a working permit. It's taking 18 months to 2 years. They're living in the apartments up the road here, and they want to work. But guess what? They're costing the taxpayers of Ontario $1 billion. On Ontario Works, 24% of the people are refugees and asylum seekers. And again, these people want to work. They aren't lazy. They aren't sitting there saying, I'm not going to work, I want to collect. It's total opposite. I need a working permit from the federal government. And if we give it to them, we can get them out there working right away.
Hang on. I was wrong. I thought he had a moment of conservatism, but by not wanting people on welfare. So I guess that's conservatism, but it's Doug Ford. So he disappointed me on the backside. I thought he was going to say most of these people are, or 25% of them are on social assistance because they don't have work permits. We are taking in too many immigrants. That's not what he said. He said they need more work permits, which then drives down the cost of wages. So I was wrong. Doug Ford continues to disappoint.
Well, Sheila, I too am going to disappoint you with my response. I'm afraid I didn't hear a single word of what Premier Ford was saying. I was fixated on the highway moving so quickly. Those cars were going at least 35 to 40 kilometers an hour. I mean, so it wasn't quite rush hour yet, but wow, that is the state of things in the GTA, and probably why Premier Ford is talking about making a tunnel under the 401 for a subterranean 401. It's only going to cost $1 trillion or so. We haven't talked about where the funding's going to come.
Do you know what?
But
I
look
would
at
go
that.
for a
Boy,
tunnel.
that's the Indy 500 right there, Sheila.
I would, as an Albertan who frequently visits Toronto, if there were a tunnel that I could avoid most of Toronto, I'm happy to help you with that. I will live like a mole when I'm in Toronto if I don't have to like go up into the Toronto part of Toronto. I'm happy to be a lizard that lives under the ground. One last video on this. Trudeau responds to data that shows thousands of international students are applying for asylum once they get to Canada, which abuses a loophole that needs to be closed and allows these people to get into Canada without a proper police background check from their country of origin. So let's show this.
Last question. On international students, we've found figures that say in 2024, 12,000 international students have applied for asylum in Canada. Mark Miller's expressed concern that that could be a backdoor, an international student visa is a backdoor to apply for asylum in Canada. Are you concerned about that issue?
Yes. Quite frankly, we need to make sure that Canada continues to be a place that welcomes in people who are fleeing violence, terrorism, that no longer have protection of their state. That's what a refugee is. That's what an asylum seeker is. We need to continue to be a place in the world that understands not just that it's a moral and appropriate thing to do to welcome in people who have no state, no protections in the country in which they currently live, but it is also good for Canada. And we have seen over the past many decades Canada thrive because of people fleeing violence and persecution. But our capacity to do that means we need to properly be able to identify who needs most help, who is there as a true asylum seeker, and use other people using the asylum path as a shortcut to gain Canadian permanent residency or citizenship is something that we need to continue to push back against. And that's why we are defending Canada's openness as a country by ensuring rigorous processes that are fair and respected. That's how Canadians will remain confident in being a country that is open to people around the world at a time where many around the world are turning backwards.
Rigorous processes. Is your government considering strengthening them, considering it is easier to get an international student visa relative to PR or other kind of visas?
Well, we've actually taken a number of steps because we saw over the past years, both post-secondary education institutions and the provinces allow for a far greater number of international students than the institutions or the communities that they're part of could actually hold. And that is why we have made significant steps to make sure that both the absorption capacity of these international students in the communities in which they live is respected, but also we were seeing, unfortunately, a lot of international students being exploited in Canada instead of getting the education and the opportunities that they came to our country for. So making sure that the system is rigorous continues to be a significant priority for us.
That's enough of him. That's enough,
Sheila.
of him.
You know,
I started responding to emails. Listening.
You know, I hate to be a stickler for details, but can anyone point out in our Constitution where it's incumbent upon us to grant citizenship to illegal aliens and international students and temporary workers and assorted other migrants? Why is this the bailiwick of Canada? And I am not anti-immigration, but I am anti-unsustainable immigration numbers. And that's what's happened in the last few years. We've already had a housing crisis before this malarkey started. For decades, we've had a healthcare crisis. And how does heaping on millions more people, how does that help things whatsoever? Please educate me.
I'm not gonna, because I can't. And besides that, there's the public safety issue. So we've got an ISIS terrorist in this country. came here abusing the temporary resident visitor's visa, got here and then claimed asylum. And then somehow magically he gets his citizenship just months ago, sponsors his son to come over, and the two of them plot a terror attack in Toronto against the city's Jewish community. And the only reason we were able to stop them was France tipped us off. And then because of this problem of temporary visitors who are not properly security screened coming here and then after the fact claiming asylum, which is not supposed to be allowed, by the way, and foreign students coming here and then claiming asylum without proper security screening, we are becoming a launch pad for terror into the United States. Just 2 weeks ago, we've got a guy using Canada as a launch pad for his terror plots into the United States, again, wanting to kill Jews. So with that happening, besides the cost of living issues that not just harms existing Canadians, old stock Canadians, as the phrase goes, but also new Canadians too, harms them too. They're not getting their Canadian dream that was promised to them because they've got to compete with just the steady deluge of people. But it's a public safety issue, not just for Canadians, but for Americans now. Maybe you think we could pump the brakes and rethink about all of this until we get it straight? No, Justin Trudeau's like, no, it's our duty to be the island of lost toys for the world.
No, and Sheila, what is egregious about what you just said? You're absolutely right. The first time it was France tipping us off about the father and son bonding "Let's Kill Jews" caper. The second time it was authorities in New York State.
Yeah.
And that's because, when I speak to my sources in law enforcement, Sheila, when people ask, where the hell is CSIS? Well, CSIS is understaffed. It's underfunded. They don't have the resources. Morale, I understand, is in the pits. In fact, people at CSIS are leaving for private sector jobs in security that are higher paying and less stressful. So our fallback strategy is, golly, we hope, we keep our fingers crossed, pinky swear, that one of our allies will alert us when some of the bad hombres roll into town to plan a terrorism act. I would say, Sheila, this is a winning platform issue for Pierre Poilievre. Say that we are going to make CSIS great again, if it ever was great. But you know what I'm saying? We are going to build this back. We're going to take care of our own sandbox and not rely on other nations to tell us about, capers that, in both those examples you cited, we could have been talking about hundreds of dead people, for God's sakes.
Oh, for sure. Except the one guy wanted to do it medieval style. He had axes and swords and whatnot. His preferred tool of choice when he's butchering people, as we know from his ISIS video. But yeah, it could have been a mass casualty event. It's a blight on Canada that we have allowed ourselves to become this. And I say we, I mean Justin Trudeau. Right-thinking people had no part of this, and they've been sounding the alarm bells for a very long time. In CSIS, I'm sure they're getting demoralized by doing the political work of spying on convoy sympathetic grandmothers.
Good point. Yeah.
We've got to get to some of the chats because I still have to iron my dress and be out the door in 18 minutes.
You're going to be the belle of the ball tonight, Sheila.
Oh, I just might. Anyway, we've got a chat from our friend Ryerson Gary. $5 at the UN last week. Is it possible that a tour group was in the General Assembly room taking selfies? And Justin Trudeau thought they were delegates, so he just made a speech. He is, as he likes to be, the corpse at every funeral and the bride at every wedding. And I'm sure he sees a podium and he just jumps in front of it and starts giving a speech because there was nobody in that room.
Oh, that was embarrassing. And I think a guy that got a bigger crowd was Mahmoud Abbas. And what made me question his presence there is, where's his photo op partner, Yara Sachs, the Liberal MP for York Centre, who was also chummy with this pay for slay guy, this terrorist, earlier this year. Those are your Justin Trudeau Liberals, folks.
There's that weird thruple first date photo of them together. Absolutely weird. Anyway, we got another one from Alberta Dawn. Gives us $5 also and says, I replaced the pocket knife I've carried for 40 years because it had a thumb stud on the 2.5-inch blade because it's now illegal. Yeah, that's true. During your Sikh interview in Toronto, there were 2 men with swords. Kirpans, actually. Yeah.
Well, the answer is obvious. You should have said you identified as a Sikh.
No, just say you have it for religious purposes and just leave it at that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I've lost so many jackknives at the airport. I never know where I've hid them in my backpack. We've got one more from Billy Howard, $2. Last full year of Harper, 13,400 asylum seekers. Yeah, and I believe we were in the middle of a war there with ISIS, right? Like ISIS was raging in northern Iraq right then, and we had 13,400 asylum seekers. 2024 is on par to reach 200,000. I haven't checked your numbers, but I feel like that's about right. We used to turn around most seekers without appeal. Yeah. This is Justin's open borders policy disguised as asylum. Yeah, and it overwhelms the system, right? So you are basically a Canadian by default if you can't get your refugee board hearing within 3 years, 4 years. What happens? Maybe you have a Canadian baby, right? And then your Canadian baby that was born in those 4 years just sponsors the rest of you in. There are plenty of ways when you're allowed to just roam wild in the country for 4 years to find yourself a Canadian citizen after the fact.
And Sheila, can you give me some clarity? Do we do medical tests anymore? Because true story, when Lady Menzoid first came to Canada in the 1970s, her and all her family members had to go through vigorous medical exams, and they were coming from what was effectively a first world nation. In this day and age, post COVID-19, is any of that being done? Because I don't think so.
I don't really think so. And I think if they found you to be ill with some sort of chronic disease, let's say HIV or tuberculosis or something, they would be like, get on in here, you big lug, front of the line in the healthcare system. Somebody else's grandma, just kick her to the side, get in here. Yeah. That stuff happens all the time. Remember a few years ago, I'm aging myself, when Harper was still in power and Jason Kenney, I believe, was the immigration minister, and he clawed back the health benefits of new asylum seekers. And they challenged that in the courts, and the courts awarded it back to them, I believe. It was a big controversy, and we're like, but we don't get those benefits. Like, we're here paying the taxes and we don't get those benefits. Why are these people who've never invested a penny into Canada getting better health benefits than Canadians are getting? Anyway.
Well, Sheila, as you may know, I somehow buggered up my knee in the spring. It even prevented me from cycling, and I have a morbid fear of getting fatter because of it. My MRI, it's next year. Valentine's Day. How romantic, right? Getting into a big iron machine. But I mean, that's outrageous that I have to wait 3 seasons, almost an entire year, to get an MRI. And yet we're going to further burden the system? Unbelievable.
Yeah, I know. I'm one of them. Plenty of people who went the private route for an MRI because you just have to bite the bullet. You know, you have to weigh like what I plan to do with this money and what I need to do with this money in Canada's socialized healthcare system where everybody dies in the same way.
You know what? That's a good point. What did it cost? Because maybe I need to shuffle off to Buffalo or Detroit.
Saskatchewan.
How much?
No, I was going to say, or Saskatchewan, where you could get yourself a more affordable private MRI there. I don't want to give away the cost, but I mean, wasn't as much as I thought it would be. How's that? It was worth the drive. Okay, let's wrap the show up because I need to get my act together and get on the road here in about 12 minutes. David, close her up.
Yeah, well, listen, folks, thank you so much for tuning in to this edition of the Rebel News live stream. A special thank you to all who contributed some do-re-mi. We greatly appreciate that. It's how we keep the lights on. Sheila and myself will be back on Monday. Can't wait. In the meantime, have yourselves an awesome weekend. And as always, stay safe and stay sane.
I'm in Brazil, so I'm using a VPN to get on the internet. What's a VPN? It stands for a virtual private network, and you get around these government firewalls. Suddenly, the president of Brazil banned his whole country from going on Twitter. It was a political censorship news. I've downloaded the VPN from a company called PIA VPN. We've teamed up with them at Rebel, and it's a great deal. I got on the internet really quickly, safely, and even I'm a bit of a technophobe. I managed to figure it out with 2 clicks. And here's the great news. If you go to piavpn.com/Rebel News, not only do you get a big discount, but they pay us a bit of a commission too. Everyone's a winner. Your freedom, your VPN, and a little bit of cash coming to support Rebel News. I'm using it myself to get around the censors in Brazil. You can use it too. That's piavpn.com/Rebel News.